Like that is one of that was one of the signature wins of Brad Underwood's tenure. And then this happens. And I don't know, like I know defensively is how they did it, but you look at it and it's just like at some point during the game, you kept thinking, well, this is a good Michigan team. Eventually, they are going to ramp into gear, and Illinois never let it happen. And this is everything Brad has been building. It's almost verbatim what we said on Saturday, but to the nth degree. I mean, the way that they did this against who they did this against, and you put all the backdrop of everything that's happened with the scheduling and all of the IO, will he, won't he today? I mean, I think we're kind of glued to see what was going to happen in the middle of the day. And then it's like they never lost a beat. It's like they never got caught up in the will he, won't he. It was like, will we? They had their plan and pedal to the metal and just blew them out. I mean, it wasn't even close.
By the way, I forgot to record the video of this to start, which I always do, but I am recording this for the podcast. So if you're watching it, you're kind of getting into it late. But I'm just saying, this is a special win. It is an absolutely special win. And I think one that Illini fans will cherish forever. And it just puts really the cherry on top of what has been a special season and really a very special run here, Joey. They've won 10 of 11 games in the Big Ten, in this Big Ten, one of the greatest conferences we've ever seen, according to Ken Palm, up top to bottom of what they bring in and night out. And our guy, Brad Evans, an Illinois grad, but he's really good as a bracket expert. He said this should be it for Illinois. This should give them the 1 seed. And that's what we said coming into this week is you win one of these games, and we thought it'd be Ohio State, you have the 1 seed. And you did it without Ayo Dosunmu for the last 3 games, and you have a chance to finish the season with 3 straight top 25 road wins. That is unbelievable. So this was a ridiculous end to a season that I think Brad Underwood was really nervous about. But how can you not be so impressed by your team to come out of it and look like this? You lose your best player. For a lot of programs, Joey, that's where you go downhill, because why wouldn't you? I mean, we're sitting there going, man, can you just hold on to a 2 seed? At worst, just hang on to that 3 seed with IO out for possibly several games here. And they just got better. Like Trent Frazier tonight. You could tell like that was freshman year swagger Trent Frazier on top of shutting down Mike Smith, which shut down the Michigan defense. DeMonte Williams I think he's played his 3 best games in a row in an Illinois uniform, 7.6 rebounds tonight, but absolutely bothered Isaiah Livers, who got hurt, and Franz Wagner as well. Jacob Grandison, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1 big 3. And then Andre Carpello is just like, oh, yeah, this is what I was supposed to do anyway with Io not here for a junior year. I'm just going to score 17 points and have 6 rebounds and score 11 of the first 16. And then Kofi absolutely dominated Hunter Dickinson. And I was nervous for Kofi coming to this game. I didn't know who would have the edge here, but Kofi defensively just absolutely bothered Hunter Dickinson. And just like last against Wisconsin, like this is a program, man. This is a special thing that is happening right now in Champaign. What everyone could have ever dreamed of when Brad Underwood got hired. And who would have thought after the first 2 years, even if you thought Iowa was going to be great, even if you thought Kofi would be good, I don't know if we ever thought that this could have happened. And this tonight could have happened. This was one of the most special performances I think Illini fans of this generation, the young generation, has ever seen, and even for the older generation, like the Wake Forest Illinois game, that was a statement. This was a statement, but I think even more surprising.
And it's not like one player just got bonkers hot and carried this team. I mean, Trent Frazier did, and he played like freshman year Trent. But it's not like I look at this and say, well, they only won because Trent Frazier scored X number of points and just went crazy. It was everything. Like
they didn't even need that. They didn't even need that flurry. That's what's amazing.
And we talked, Jeremy, before this game, like Michigan doesn't have any holes on its roster. And we dove into, well, what about the wings and what about this? And somehow Brad, the team was so in sync that it kind of eliminated all that. I mean, I would still sit here today and say Michigan probably has the advantage on the wings. That's not a bad take. But the way that Illinois had this defensive game plan, the way that they went about just stopping. I mean, stopping Michigan. Michigan looked so out of sync. Jay Billis did a good job. He point. They were playing one-on-one. I mean, there wasn't the ball movement that makes him click. It was none of that. It was just Illinois sat down and guarded. And 2 years ago, when Brad Underwood redid everything and he got rid of that get in the lanes and jump and high pressure, this is what he built that for. As he said, not to be Michigan to do more, but these games, these win on the roads. He said when the offense isn't working, the offense obviously worked pretty well the final 30 minutes, but it was just everywhere. And yeah, Kofi on Hunter Dickinson was really, really good defensively, and he got it going offensively because Hunter Dickinson did a pretty nice job on Kofi Coburn too. And you're watching the game, and early on, I thought it's just going to be like a net wash here. Like,
Yeah.
is that how this is going to go? And Kofi got his rhythm, and we've seen this out of Kofi when like the energy gets going and things are just like moving. Like when Illinois gets a kill or they're starting to string it together, this guy just goes to another
That
atmosphere.
Kofi grin, right? Like he gets that Kofi grin going, and it's like, uh-oh. That's like when his motor is revved and the energy, Georgie, it's more fluctuating, right? Like Kofi, usually his energy's placed in the right way, but lately he's kind of gotten off track sometimes, right? Like, and teams have bothered him. Hunter Dickinson didn't get him off his game at all today, and I thought that was really impressive. By the way, Michael Tulip is going to hop on with our Zoom call at some point and get more at X's and O's. He's actually hopping on right now, but that was a really special performance by all of them. And 76-53, even Zach Griffith got involved with 2 points late in this game. And Joey, you saw the celebration, man. What a deserved celebration that was.
I mean, that's what I wish I would have seen it before the Zoom because they had something special lined up there that they were doing. And that's a follow up for Brad at another time. But that was everything. We talked about Andre Curbelo. This is a guy who, like, 3 weeks ago, Illinois fans could not have sold stock on this season faster. They were ready to just be like, nope, this dude, he has no control. He goes crazy with the ball. And now they're building a statue for the guy in Champaign. He just, when the moment came, he stepped in and he was completely ready and he ignited that offense that was just really, really slow in those first 10 minutes and got everything going.
All right. I usually have him on like after a loss. It just works out that way. But Michael Tulip is joining us. Thanks for joining us, man. I know there's so much to get into, but that was shocking because Michigan's really good. And I thought the score would have been switched given that Io DeSumo was out. But what do you think it was like to be a part of that, whether on the floor or on the locker room?
Like, if just my gut reaction, right? Like, there's a lot to dive. I guess a lot when it comes to peeling back the curtain. There's a lot in terms of the nuts and bolts and what worked, what didn't work, what worked for Illinois, what didn't work for Michigan. I mean, this reaffirms, to me, it reaffirms everything that Brad Underwood has been building. And it all was a culmination in this one game. Like, let's think about it. Game gets off to a slow start. What was everybody clamoring for earlier in the season? Let's start Andre Curbelo. And then Andre Curbelo comes in, completely changes the game, opens the game up a little bit. And then I think of even other things. Jacob Grandison. If you would have said, "Hey, Illinois is playing at the second-ranked team in the country, Michigan, at their place, and you know what? We're going to start Jacob Grandison." If he would have said that, after the Mizzou game or something, where Jacob Grandison had a tough 2 minutes, you'd be like, what is going on? To me, a lot of this was, you credit the players. I even tweeted about crediting Io because I think he's a big part of what they built. But damn it, you credit Brad Underwood. He's just the way he has created this culture, and a lot of coaches say it, right? Oh, we want to have a player-led culture. Yeah, okay, but you still, hey, coach, maybe you still want it to be about you and sing your own praises from time to time. He's done that. He's made this a player-led culture. And I say that while still saying he's an unbelievable coach. And that's what unbelievable coaches do. It's, hey, I'm going to create this culture so that Io can get on DeMonte, so that Io can get on Trent, so that Trent can get on Io. And what it does is when you have a guy like Io go down, these guys want to play for him. I'm not saying it was like a win-win for the Gipper, tonight, but there is a feeling of I think Illinois has been itching for that. Like they've been waiting for that game of everyone counting them out, and I think it's a breath of fresh air for them to just say, hey, you know what? No one believes in us. Io's down. Let's go in there and let's kick their butts. And there's a lot of nitty gritty to get into, but they were just the tougher team tonight. Tougher, more dialed in. Whatever you want to call it. Illinois brought it.
You're kind of going back to like all these lessons along the way, Mike. Like Jacob Grandison, the last 2 games outplaying Aleem Ford and Tyler Wall. And then this game, like DeMonte and him outplayed Livers and Wagner. Like that's unbelievable. But then you think about toughness and rebounding, like Ohio State, Maryland, those were lessons in that game that we have to bring it. And I think this is a team I don't have to worry about getting up for games. Like that hasn't been an issue so far this year. But it does feel like even within this season, I mean, you're mentioning even like long-term things. Joey's been mentioning like the defensive change, like it's all leading to this and Kofi and what he did defensively. But even like within the season, those lessons they've learned along the way, and I think they learned it again against Michigan State last week, is they've built on that and learned from that. And that's a credit to, as you said, both the coaches and players.
Yeah, no question. I think when you break down, I've gone back and said this before, the change that Brad Underwood made to go from, hey, we're going to usher in this 7 seconds or less, it's going to be fun, high octane, and Illinois when he initially came in, to understanding, hey, I got to mold, our game plan around my personnel. And that's exactly what he did. Kofi comes in last year and it was hey, we're going to grind it up. We don't shoot the ball particularly well, so let's keep these games in the 60s and see if we can get some wins. And they did. And then this year, you get a guy like Andre Curbelo, you get a guy like Adam Miller. Io takes his game to another level, and now you're potent defensively and offensively. And when you can do that, I mean, the sky's the limit. And I think, moving forward, you said, they have no problem getting up for games. Well, really from here on out, every game you can get up for. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Man, I was just really proud of those guys, specifically Trent. We sing his praises a lot on this podcast, and rightfully so. He hit that 3 to put them up 28, and the camera panned to him, and I just remember sitting there being like, this is so cool because he deserves this. He deserves this, and I think even if and if Io doesn't go down, Trent's still revered, right? But what he's been able to do in his absence is it's nothing short of incredible, and it's exactly what this team needed. It's exactly when this team needed it, he delivered it. And you can say the same about Jacob Grandison. You could say the same about Andre Curbelo. I know he had 6 turnovers last game, but man, did he look good tonight. They couldn't stay in front of him. It didn't matter who it was. And you've gotten a glimpse with Io, gotten a glimpse into the future, right? Like you've gotten a glimpse of, even in the short-term future, of what this team can accomplish in the NCAA tournament, and going far and what it takes to go far. And man, I think it was a wake-up call for Michigan specifically. And people would say, hey, they were due. Illinois stole their soul tonight. Like, straight up. Like, you can
be in Mortal Kombat. Your soul is mine.
There's really no other way for me to explain it.
Mike, before we get into like the nuts and bolts, you said something interesting in the sense that like Jacob Grandison didn't play his best stretch of basketball in December, but it seems like Brad, like he stays the course. He doesn't really ride the roller coaster too much until it's the exact time to flip. Like it felt like it was the time to give Jacob that start, but he really seems to find the balance of like staying where he needs to be until that very second where he can't anymore. And it kind of goes unnoticed, that transition sometimes, because it's pretty seamless.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Joey. I think the one thing that's always stuck with me from playing and being in those locker rooms and then seeing the dichotomy of, okay, I see what fans are saying, and I'm also at practice every day. So I guarantee you that Jacob Grandison was doing those things in practice. This wasn't just like let's get old Jacob a try here. He was doing those things. I guarantee it. And I'd heard those things out of the Illinois practice facility, if you will. So it wasn't a surprise to me when he became a starter, because I thought he was an integral part of, the comeback at Penn State, the comeback at Northwestern. Like he was, and maybe that opened Brad Underwood's eyes even more of like, this kid does this every possession. And granted, so does DeMonte, but there's a difference. There just is in the Big Ten. There's a difference between 6'6" and 6'3". As trivial as that sounds, there just is. And I think what he's been able to do, the elements of his game, and I said it tonight, but you can look back at any national champion, you can look back at any Final Four team, they have a Jacob Grandison. Like they all have a Jacob Grandison, and I think you take him off his team, and I think DeMonte still kind of fills that role, but DeMonte's almost even more dangerous when he can be that. I know he starts, but in terms of how he's depended on, like a 6th, 7th guy that is knocked down from three, long and can rebound, wants to defend, wants to share the ball. Like you can't have enough of those guys when you already have the talent that you have. So, but you're back to your point of knowing exactly when to make these changes and him not getting, swept away with, oh man, I'm getting pressured to start Andre Curbelo. Let me start Andre Curbelo. Like Jeremy, you and I were hard stance, keep him coming off the bench for the entire season, because I think what it's done is it's protected him in a way, to where when he comes to these moments on Blockbuster Tuesday, he can come in and do what he did, because all I've been hearing out of the Illinois practice facility, all I've been hearing about Andre Curbelo is, man, he'd play even better with fans in the stands. That's just who he is. Like he's a showman. Like he feeds off that, and that energizes him. And I think these big games are where you see him step up. And then the maturity aspect of it is always going to be, hey, what are we going to do when a bottom feeder comes to town, right? And I say that, and he almost had a triple double the other night against Nebraska. But those types of things, that's where the maturity comes. And I thought, staying on the freshman train, I thought Adam Miller was terrific tonight. His energy, he was moving his feet. He's always been great laterally, defensively, but tonight he just seemed to be a step ahead. Like, and it felt like that for a lot of the guys in the Illini. So, you're exactly right. I think Brad Underwood's done a tremendous job of hitting all elements in all phases of being a coach, right? Hey, let me get my staff. Okay, let me get the players. Okay, now can I make in-game adjustments? Now can I make adjustments from game to game? What's going to help us? And like all of those factor into being a really, really good coach. And I think Brad Underwood falls under that umbrella.
Mike, this defensive performance is one of the best I've seen. Michigan was top 10 in offensive efficiency. They were top 10 in points per possession, and in Illinois made them look like a bottom of the Big Ten offense. What did you see? Joey, I think Brad said Orlando Antigua had the scout on this one. Chin Coleman's kind of.
I think him and Chin are just kind of this 1-2 punch defensively, it sounds like.
Yeah, so I think Chin's kind of been the main guy this year, but I mean, that whole staff obviously put this together. Mike, what did they do so well, other than individual efforts?
Yeah, I mean, starting with the individual effort and toughness, physicality, they checked all those boxes tonight. But getting into the actual nitty gritty to the game plan, I thought it was an unbelievable move to ice the ball screens. To keep, and I know you guys know this, but to explain it to the listeners, icing the ball screen is when, instead of trailing the offensive player off a ball screen, you are turning your body towards the sideline and forcing it to stay on that side. So now Hunter Dickinson, anyone that's setting a ball screen typically has to, we used to call it bounce. So you bounce, like the big man will have to bounce to receive the ball because there's nowhere for them to go. You're icing to prevent them from coming off the ball screen. And then also Kofi and Georgie are in a position to almost corral it where they can't go right either. They can't go left either. So all it forces is that little throwback to Hunter Dickinson. And the more you can make the guy, the guy who's keying the offense be Hunter Dickinson, the more that, you're in a good spot. And I thought Michigan is great when they can get the ball humming. I mean, it's always been Michigan's thing. When they get it humming around the arc, that's when they become dangerous. And even so, what helped Kofi and what helped Georgie is when you ice those ball screens, when the ball's flying around the arc, guys are coming off ball screens, swing, swing, swing. it's so much harder to play post defense. It's so much harder to stay because Hunter Dickinson is rotating and rotating. The ball's moving, and it's hard to stay on top, get back behind, get back on top. And when you keep it on one side of the floor, you're able to stay in the same defensive position, and things slow down a little bit. So I thought it was a tremendous game plan. I thought it was something that that I think teams going forward are going to look at like, oh, hey, maybe we ice these ball screens against against Michigan.
And Mike, I'm glad you mentioned Georgie. I thought he was great. I thought his energy was great. His defense, one play they were humming the ball and Hunter got behind him. But I thought Georgie gave fantastic minutes guarding the post as well.
I think a lot of times with Georgie, when he gets in there, it's chaos. I thought it was controlled chaos tonight. Because there were a couple instances where Georgie always means well. Georgie, whatever scout is, Georgie wants to do it to a T. And clearly the scout was to front Hunter Dickinson. And I think he learned his lesson really one of the first possessions he came in. Oh, I'm going to front him. Oh, I'm going to front him. And now he's rooting you up to the free throw line. And you got to mix in, I'm going to dive behind him for a second, give him a different look. And he kept going high side, and they just threw it over the top for a layup. But I thought the way he was able to defend without fouling as the throughout the course of the game and staying vertical. And we always say it's so hard. And anybody can say that sitting at home, okay, stay vertical. You just got to stay vertical there. Why are you coming down? Go grab your wife, grab your daughter, grab your son, grab your brother, and have them put your hands straight up and have them hit you in the chest. What do your arms naturally do? They go down. So it's even more of a point to, and it's even more impressive when you can maintain that and sustain that throughout a game of like, I'm going straight up. Doesn't matter what kind of blow you give to my body. Like I'm staying vertical. And I thought Georgie was fantastic with that tonight. I thought he was patient offensively. And that's really all you need. And I think the more these guys are starting to find their identity, I know you can say it's March, but we always said earlier in the season, this team was never going to be a finished product. And I think now it's almost coming full circle, because I remember after the Ohio State game was when people were like, but should never bought this team. And then now people are talking national championship. And then now you go and see the Buckeyes again, and we're at this completely different level. I'm watching Baylor tonight, and I'm sitting there like, that's a damn good team. And this is an Illinois team that really played with them for 33 minutes, December, whatever it was, early December. And think about how much better Illinois has gotten since then. Think about how much guys have found their identity and where they fit in on the team, where Adam Miller fits in on the team. I thought what he's done the last two games is, I know Io's out, and he did what was required of him against Nebraska. He was aggressive, and that's what the defense gave him. And I thought against Wisconsin and tonight, he had that selective aggressiveness, and it wasn't just, I got to go and get mine because Io's out. And that's been huge. And I think that's something that he's having more confidence in what his role is, and all of those guys are. And you can't possibly click at a better time than, March 2nd.
Mike, I told Jeremy before you got on, this might be a take that doesn't age very well, but I would still say Michigan has the advantage on the wings on paper. Like those are really, really good wings. How did Illinois negate Franz Wagner? And even I saw like Livers got going pretty good a little bit in the first half, and I thought, okay, this was a matter of time, and then it just stopped. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, I think when you look at a guy like Franz Wagner and when you look at a guy like Livers, I've watched a lot of Michigan basketball, and a lot of Livers open looks and a lot of Franz looks. Franz is great in the open court. He's long, he gets in passing lanes, and when he can get out, he's dangerous. And there wasn't much of that tonight. And then with Livers, he tends to be a guy that is really, his I'm not saying his game is predicated on it, but he takes advantage of second chance opportunities. And it's the old Billy Donovan, where you get the offensive rebound, and when is the 3-point arc the most open? It's then. So when you can limit them on the offensive glass, it takes away all these second chances for guys like Livers to get going, for guys like Wagner to get going. And I thought the other thing too is you didn't let those guys, although they had size. I mean, Franz Wagner, 0 free throws tonight. You know, he's like an 84% free throw shooter. You know, Isaiah Livers, 2 free throws tonight. I thought they were so good at mixing in when to be in the gaps. And I thought it was almost like the Brad Underwood of old style. They were in the gaps and they also denied. Like it was a great blend of, hey, we're going to ice on the ball screens, but when the ball's moving around the arc, we're going to mix in some denials and just create this heat in the kitchen. Where I felt like Livers and Wagner, they weren't able, it was kind of like they were running in quicksand all night. Like they weren't able to really get going. And part of that too is the inside out game that they have. And I thought Dickinson was frustrated because he hasn't gone up against anyone like Kofi. And to Dickinson's credit, I don't think Kofi had gone up really against anyone like him either. Kofi looked like he absolutely won that battle. But, you know, Livers and Wagner are both guys that I think you're never going to hand them the ball and be like, hey, man, it's tip off. Go win us the game with your isolation, with, you know, that's just not their games. Their games are within the team system. They're like, they're both, I think they're both system quarterbacks, if you will. And if you can find the glitch in the system, then you can take them down. And I think you're exactly right. I still think they have the advantage on the wings. I think both of those guys are going to play in the NBA. Is that going to be the case for DeMonte Williams and Jacob Grandison? Maybe not, but that's why it's a team game. And that's why you have 5 guys. When you have 5 guys that connected defensively, it's a sum of the parts. Like and I thought that was the case tonight. And it showed you that when you can play collective defense like that, don't matter how many NBA prospects are on the other team, like you can get the job done.
Mike, Joey doesn't know what a system quarterback is. He's a Packers fan. Okay? He's got Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers in his history, so he doesn't know what that is. You mentioned, should we be talking more about Trent Frazier then? Because Mike Smith is kind of the head of that offense, kind of gets everything going. Should we be talking about his defense a little bit?
Jeremy, hell yes, we should. I think it is, man, anyone that's listening to me on this podcast probably is like, then this dude sounds like a broken record. But this dude, and I continue to be so impressed with it. When you look, first of all, credit Michigan for getting a guy like Mike Smith in the time that they needed it, with Xavier Simpson leaving. I think he brings more to the table than Xavier Simpson, who was a really good Big Ten player, but Xavier Simpson wasn't a threat, you know, from the outside. And I think Mike Smith is that. Xavier Simpson may be a little better at probing the defense, but anyways. Back to Trent, what he's been able to do night in and night out. And you can see people say, you know, when you see shots going in, you're confident, and then you come in, heat check. This dude has, like, the way he levels guys off defensively and the way he is able to get through screens, it's like a defensive heat check. I mean, it's like he is able to, you know, and the bench feeds off of it. And I think this, and I heard some inside stuff from the Wisconsin game, namely, so he was on, I think Alondo Tucker, the Wisconsin assistant coach, was talking to Trice and was like kind of walking him through how to come off the ball screen and, you know, this and that. And allegedly, Trent was standing at half court watching them do their little walkthrough together, and looked at him and goes, that ain't gonna work. and that's the type of mentality that wins, not only just wins games, but creates this winning culture. Like I think Io possesses that, and I think Io and Trent both possessing that. You can see, like, from when Kofi first came in to like the you know, I guess what's the word for it? Like the tenacity that he plays with now. And you can tell when Kofi's kind of feeling himself. Like all of that is it's culture. And to me, it's not like, you can always walk the fine line of, are they showing up the other team? Is it arrogance? It's like it's a competitive confidence. And it's something that for a lot of these guys, for Trent, who is he is undersized when it comes to being a great defender. And so he needs to have that chip on his shoulder. So when you look at all these different guys, especially Trent, like I remember when he was on his visit, And I remember standing in the locker room with him. I was at Wright State, but this was August, so I came back, and it was Trent Frazier's recruiting visit. And I'm talking to him. Him and I have a talk in the locker room for, I don't know, 25 minutes. And I was like, what are your schools? What are you looking at? And he was like, oh, like Georgia, LSU. I was like, those are football schools, bro. Like, I was like, I'm telling you, man. Like, and the other thing with Trent too is that he's Curbelo. That dude feeds off of the love, right? Like the fans, and I think he's turned a corner now to where he's so much more about like the big picture and what that means. Him and I exchange texts pretty frequently, and the sentiment that's always there with Trent is like, don't care, we want more. Like, don't care. Like, care but don't care. It's over. Like, we're moving on to the next one. We're hungry. And people can say that, and I've been in locker rooms before where dudes say that, but I believe it with these guys. I really do. I think it's one thing to play for a goal, a common goal in mind, and it's another thing to stay the course the way they have, even with a couple losses of Maryland, Ohio State, and then what they've turned that into since. I'm gonna miss, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he's decided to come back and play or not, but I'm gonna miss watching him suit up in the orange and blue. Io, obviously, DeMonte, obviously. Zach Griffith had that rebound tonight. It's gonna make me miss him too, and that putback. But man, I mean, this has just been so much fun, and it's what I've always been saying to anyone that'll listen is cherish it. Like, you have to cherish it because there will never be another 2020, 2021 Illinois Fighting Illini. There won't be. And I think this program is set up for success in the future. But you never know what can happen year to year with, injuries and this or that, certain things that are out of your control. So in the moment, like, hell yeah, let's enjoy the 23-point win against Michigan, and yeah, we're focused on the big picture, but hell, this is fun. Like, and this is the way it should be. This is March, and we're talking about a 1 seed, and this is everything that we've been talking about, everything the fan has been talking about, everything Brad Underwood's been talking about, coaches, players. Like, you're living in it, you're here. So cherish that, understand it, take it for what it is, and enjoy it.
It's funny you talk about Trent at half court at Wisconsin saying it's not going to work, because Piper got a picture of Io today at half court while Michigan was warming up. The dude was just glaring. Like, Io was not playing in that game, and he just watched like I don't care. I'm still here. I'm still in the building. Like, he kind of commanded that about him, and I think that's probably contagious around all of them. But you talked after the Michigan State game, like, Michigan State's back was against the wall. They've got to win as many of these things as they possibly can to get in. Illinois, not obviously as much, but the mental kind of hurdle there of getting yourself up for that game. How do you, like, this game, when Iowa was ruled out, it's kind of like a gravy game. It's like, it's probably not going to hurt if you lose. And if you win, it's everything. So how, like, the mental psyche to stay up, how do you do that with your best player out, knowing that, like, it's not really going to hurt in the big picture of things?
I hesitate to say that Illinois won this game because they were playing with house money, but I mean, let's call a spade a spade. I think I've dove into the psychological aspect of basketball, the psychological aspect of sports, and I think they say it's 3-1. I believe that. I mean, I think right now, I don't know if I've ever shared my theory. I call it the man down theory, but it's typically what happens is when a team loses their star player. Luckily, honestly, I'm not even sure Illinois qualifies for this because they have enough talent. But you look at Nebraska, and them beating Minnesota the other night, and Rutgers. I look at a team that, like, when your star player goes down, typically, and I actually think John Beilein talked about it the other night, so I may have to trademark this, but there's a 1 to 2 game period, right, where everyone is still playing. It's muscle memory. You're still playing your role. And then with that, expectations are lowered. You're playing with a little bit more house money. So, and then once the second, third game starts to creep around, guys are starting to figure out more that they can do within, outside of their role. Like, oh, Io's out. I can do a little bit more of this. And then that's when you start losing again. That's why I think Illinois doesn't qualify, because they have talented enough players. But you see time and time again, star player goes down, and those first couple games are, I think Auburn lost their best. Sharif Cooper was out, and they went in, they beat Tennessee. It just tends to happen. But from the psychological standpoint, I look at a team that no matter what, and this is all going back to Io, because the type of culture that he has created with his leadership in that locker room, it's like it's sustainable whether he's on the court or not. And I think you see it on the sidelines. And I think I've said it before, where Andre Curbelo subs out and Io's putting his arm around him. Hey man, this is what I'm seeing. This is, and this is a guy that's about to be, 6 months from now or whatever, he's probably going to be an NBA player. Not probably, he's going to be. But what that does for a guy like Andre Curbelo, when the next freshman comes in, I learned that from Io. I'm putting my arm around this guy. And it's a domino effect. And I've said it before, that's what makes the villain, and maybe this isn't good time because Villanova just lost, but that's what makes the Villanovas, right? Like, that's what makes these programs. That's why programs have sustained success. So there is a mental component to knowing that you're undermanned and knowing the other team might be taking you lightly. But I thought tonight was less of that and more like, this is Illinois basketball. Like, and it's awesome to be able to say that, because there's nothing fake about it. There's nothing phony about it. Like, this was another, just like I thought Wisconsin was a culture win. This was another one. This was another culture win that makes you look into the future and say, hey, you know what? Io might have a statue built out of the State Farm Center, but this program, even after him, is going to be in really good hands. And I think that's the one thing where you look and say, man, this is exciting.
Yeah, I felt that way after Wisconsin, Mike. And then after today, I'm like, this is even better than I thought it was. Right. So last one, Mike, 'cause I just got the 9-minute warning from Zoom here. Let's look towards that future, because I believe Io DeSumo was in the concussion protocol. It's kind of what I've speculated based on the timeline coming back. Sounds like today was right at the edge of that. He just didn't get cleared. Probably could have played, but I think the protocol is well-intentioned and it's there for a reason. And look what happened without it. But I would expect him to play at Ohio State. So what is the impact of these 3 games without him, given the success they've had? And is there any worry, I use that in quotations, about him getting acclimated back to a team that's rolling a little bit? I hate to ask it, but I guess it's the one question now when he comes back with a face mask.
Right. Yeah. He's got the mask on his face. So, I mean, it's not like he's coming back from a tweaked ankle. I think ultimately this team and Io specifically, I mean, he's just so mature. And you can hear that in his comments. You can hear that. You can just see that in the way he carries himself. There's not a fake bone in his body. And I think when he comes back, and then the other thing is when you have teammates that are welcoming him back. I mean, there's not, trust me, it's not every star player in college basketball. I can assure you, I'm not saying it's from my experience at Illinois, but I can assure you that there are teams in college basketball that for damn sure think that they're better off without their star player, that they were holding them back, that we can achieve more without them. I know Io doesn't believe that. I know Illinois doesn't believe that. I know I don't believe that. And I know you and Joey don't believe that.
Right.
So I think there's a difference when you can have a guy that's welcomed back with open arms like Io is. And I think he's mature enough to understand, like, it's, if he plays against Ohio State, that it's about beating Ohio State, no matter what. If that means Io takes 9 shots, I don't think Io's of the mindset of, man, let me start this game off and just let me get Io going a little bit. I think
right? Almost to a fault sometimes.
Right. Exactly. So I think, you know, it's being able to come in and have that maturity of, we still have a lot to play for. And he's confident enough in himself to be able to say, you know what, there is no shaking rust off, because the only way that that becomes the case is if you believe that. And I think Io has this unwavering belief in himself that it's just, you know what, like the plane slowed down a little bit, but like once I step back onto that runway, we're taking off again. Like there's no having to sit and refuel and de-ice the plane. Like, no, like we're all the passengers on board. Good. Let's keep flying. You know, and I think that's something that that is so unusual for, you know, for college programs, for guys to have that type of maturity. I'll keep going back to it. I'll keep hammering it home. I probably said it 7 times describing Io, but it's really what, you know, I've come to really love about him. I believe I tweeted it after the Purdue game at Purdue last year. I was just like, man, I'm just blown. Like, yeah, great. Trent's pulling up for 3, hits his 6th 3 or 5th 3. I'm so impressed by Io's leadership. Like, and I remember saying it in the moment there, and just the way he has taken off. And yeah, he came back, right? Like he could be on an NBA roster right now, but he came back and has every excuse to be like, no, like I came back, right? Like, you know, I did this, and it's about me. And you don't see any of that with him. And I think all these accolades, right? And the team's success has been a byproduct of him having that, you know, I guess intestinal fortitude, and having these teammates that he has embody that as well. So I don't see any type of, you know, oh man, like let me dip my toes in the water. He'll come back, and, you know, he'll be Io, and they'll welcome him back.
I agree with you. And right now they look like the national title contender we all thought they could be at the beginning of the year. Michael Tulip, you are the goods, man. Appreciate you as always, giving you 30, 40 minutes of your time, man.
Yeah, it's a Jordan flu game right now. I'm getting wisdom teeth pulled tomorrow. So I got like some gums overlapping teeth. So I threw some Orajel on, and that'll probably be wearing off here soon. So
didn't even know it. Now we had 2 legendary performances on the night. So there you go, Mike.
Yeah. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm battling right now.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, man.
All right, man. See you.
All right. See you.